and by the time
Yeah, I know.
want to? Oh, French. Jolly. Live either.
So I have 7 o'clock. If CNET is all ready and staff is ready, I'll go ahead and call to order the Board of Supervisors regular meeting for Tuesday, December 12th. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and we will go to the manager for announcements and a roll call.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to members of the board, staff, and the public for joining us this evening for the December 12th regular meeting of the Board of Supervisors. This meeting has been properly advertised in accordance with the Pennsylvania Sunshine Act as a hybrid meeting with the option to attend virtually and in person here in the main meeting room. If you are attending virtually using the Zoom platform and wish to speak on behalf of an agenda item, please say your name, municipality of residence, and the topic you wish to speak on when the chairwoman calls on you. If you are attending in person with us in the main meeting room and wish to speak on behalf of an agenda item, please address the board at the podium and state your name and municipality of residence and the topic you wish to speak on. Prior to commencing the meeting, I have a few short procedural items to cover. First, members of the public attending using the Zoom platform are asked to remain muted during the meeting to prevent any ambient noise from disrupting the meeting. If a member of the public is acknowledged by the chair, they may unmute their microphone for their question or comment. Secondly, board members are asked to indicate their name when motioning or seconding a motion so that the minutes may accurately reflect the action taken. And finally, a roll call of the Board of Supervisors will now be taken to ensure that all members can hear and interact using the Zoom meeting platform. Please indicate that you are here when your name is called. Ms. Strickland?
Here.
Ms. Stevens?
I'm here.
Mr. Thompson?
Here.
Mr. Gracie Griffin?
I am here.
Mr. Heller?
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. And we were maybe having issues with hearing online. Do you think those are resolved? No.
At least the one was resolved. so.
Okay, great. All right. Okay, is there any public input this evening? This is an opportunity for any member of the public to comment on any item not on tonight's agenda. And seeing none, we'll move to approval of the minutes. There are two sets of minutes from November 21st and December 5th. Were there any changes or corrections to those?
I didn't see the December 5th ones, but the November 21st ones, I think it said that I was uncomfortable with the strategic plan. And I just wanted to say that I was comfortable with the strategic plan, but just realizing that we would be readdressing it soon.
Thank
We
you.
can make that amendment.
Thank you. Okay, any other changes? Okay, would someone want to make a motion to approve the minutes with that change?
Sorry, did anyone else see the December 5th minutes, or was it just me?
They are here.
They were?
there, yeah.
Oh, gosh, all right. I only saw the 21st ones, but, okay.
They weren't in an earlier PDF that I downloaded, so that might
That's
be-
probably what
yeah.
happened. I
Mhm.
downloaded it
I'm
earlier.
noticing that right now.
Okay.
So, okay, would someone care to make that motion with that change?
I, Mr. Thompson, move that we approve the set of minutes noting the comments made by the gentlewoman from Ward 3.
Okay, is there a second?
This is Matt, I'll second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, that passes, and we'll move to authorities, boards, and commission reports. And we have a report on the Spring Creek Watershed Commission. I know that report was attached, and I don't see Mr. Kevin Abbey online, but the report, he is joining, okay. There he is, okay. And we'll say hello to Mr. Kevin Abbey. Can you hear us?
Hello.
Hello. Great, thank you. Your report was included. Was there anything you wanted to highlight or share from your report?
Only that the Watershed Commission completed its sixth and final meeting of the year on November 17th, and as treasurer, I sent along both the financial report and the budget update. I think that it's important that the Board of Supervisors are current with what we're trying to do, and following the adoption of our budget, we're looking to submit paperwork for an AmeriCorps position, and we're fortunate in that Jasmine Fields of State College Borough, who's a member of the executive committee, has recent muscle memory, having been a AmeriCorps member, and is going to help us. They have midterm slots that are available, and the commission hopes that by mid-January or February that we'll have a AmeriCorps position that will help us with the activities of coordinating meetings and doing many of the staff and administrative and outreach functions that have been somewhat difficult in the past with simply volunteer appointees. And I wanted to thank Corey Gracie Griffin for attending the meeting in November and staying current with what we were trying to accomplish with the Watershed Commission. And I have no other comments on top of the report that I submitted.
Thank you so much. Questions for Mr. Abbey? I'm not seeing any. That's exciting about the AmeriCorps position coming online. And okay, I'm not seeing anything else. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Well, thank you guys. And let me, if you would, Lisa, give a shout out to Jenna. I understand she's getting ready to move on professionally, and I just send my best to her and all best wishes.
Thank you so much. All right. Okay, so we will move on to special reports and acknowledgements under diversity, equity, and inclusionary initiatives and acknowledgements. We have Hanukkah from December 7th through 15th. The administrative offices will be closed for Christmas Day on the 25th. Kwanzaa is December 26th. New Year's Eve is on 12/31, and the administrative offices will also be closed for New Year's Day on the 1st. And we'll move to COG and Regional Committee reports, and up first is the Human Resources Committee.
So we did meet last week and abruptly adjourned the meeting for lack of quorum.
Oh.
So what was on the agenda, I believe we'll touch base on again in January. So,
Okay. That's too bad.
yeah.
The people showed up without a quorum being there. Okay. Any questions for Jeremy on that? No. I hope that can get remedied. I think that's happened a couple of times. So, or at least it's been a challenge getting a quorum there, maybe.
That one that was the first one this year for HR, but I think the last one was a climate
It was
meeting
for
that
climate, okay.
we met, lacked a quorum, and
All right. Okay. Well, thank you for attending.
You're welcome.
And next is the Land Use and Community Infrastructure Committee. We didn't have a meeting. Instead, we had a meet and greet luncheon with the new CRPA director, Michael Tilka. And that was a really nice opportunity for him to get to know staff and Lucy and CRPC committee members. That was very nice. And then we have the Climate Action and Sustainability Committee.
I believe, so that meeting was canceled. I believe that announcement probably came out just after the agenda was
Okay.
formed for this meeting.
All right. Okay.
Did I forward to you that initiative about Leave the Leaves program?
Yes, and I have a couple times, well, maybe once or twice this year, had mentioned about leaving leaves out in a meeting because we have touch base from time to time on leaf blowers. I remember watching a program on the Weather Channel earlier, maybe it was last year, where they were advising to leave leaves out because leaving leaves out does provide some habitat for insects over winter, and then in the spring provides some meals for birds, and so there are benefits, but
Yeah. I just
It-
thought it was an interesting initiative that I
Yeah.
would love to see us, sort of promote here. And it also, that one
Right.
of the other benefits they said too is that it can help in the amount of leaves that a township might collect, if you do this whole Leave the Leaves initiative. So it was cool. Anyway, I passed it on to you to see if,
That would
If
be
it's something-
interesting if the committee could share out something to general forum on that, just as an informational item.
Yeah.
Not a presentation, but just maybe something to attach to matter of record.
yeah, I could send that over
Yeah,
to
that'd be
Shelley.
interesting.
Yeah.
yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, any other questions for Jeremy on that? And if there aren't any, we'll move to staff reports, and we'll have a manager's report next month, but if there's questions for the manager, or if there's anything
I'll
else you
provide a
want to-
verbal update
Sure.
that the township received notification from the Appalachia Regional Commission that we were extended a invitation to submit the actual grant application to do a Ferguson Township a comprehensive strategic economic development, growth, and innovation report. recognizing that all three wards would be, assessed with interest in figuring out how we leverage and tie in our traditional historic roots with the modern economic development growth and innovation. So it's exciting news. More to come.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great news. It looked like we were maybe one of two that were asked to move forward in that process from our area. And so that's very exciting. So fingers crossed that we do get that. Thanks so much for working on that and sharing that. Okay, Public Works Director's report.
Good evening. I have a written report in the packet, and I can answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Modricker? Not seeing any. All right, thank you. And we'll
welcome.
go to the Planning and Zoning Director's report.
My report's in the agenda as well. Happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you. Questions for Jenna? Last chance. Thank you very much. Okay. And Chief of Police, anything to report?
Nothing to report. My report will be in next month's
Thank you.
agenda.
All right, questions for Chief? And not seeing any. We'll move to unfinished business, and the first item on the agenda is the approval of the 2024 COG summary budget. And we'll go to the manager.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At the November 27th Center Region Council of Government General Forum meeting, it was voted to approve the 2024 budget and referred the budget to the participating municipalities for adoption by December 31st. And at a previous regular meeting, the board reviewed the 2024 COG summary budget and provided comments to the executive director. Below the narrative in the agenda packet was a link for a board's review of the COG summary budget, and this evening the board is provided with a recommended motion to approve the 2024 Center Region COG summary budget.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and start with a motion.
This is Patty. I move that the Board of Supervisors approve the 2024 Center Region Council of Government summary budget.
Is there a second?
This is Matt, I'll second.
All right, discussion on this item. Who would like to kick it off? Go ahead.
I guess I could kick it off. So during the general forum meeting, I will share. As you remember, I was one of the votes that didn't that said no to this budget. I had some concerns. The fact that it was over 10% higher than the previous year budget, which currently is like 3 times the rate of inflation right now. I know my understanding there was a budget guideline that the budget would not exceed 8%. And I do know last year there was initially a very large increase of the budget proposed, which was found to be very problematic. And the increase last year initially was 16.68%, and this budget reflects probably 68% of that. So I did some looking back over past budget increases, and I noticed out of like the 5 of the last 8 budget cycles that the COG budget was either usually below the rate of inflation or within 5% of whatever inflation was either that year or the year prior. And the budget increases have been relatively conservative. Mostly all of them since 2017, with the exception of 2023 and 2024, under 5%, some even under 3%. So I did have some concerns going forward if these larger increases would become more normal, and just concerned about the sustainability of that and how that pulls on our budget and the quality of life of our residents and as well as the cost of living and affordability, because in many municipalities, taxes have been raised, where we've been fortunate here that we haven't, but you only can sustain that for so long before either have to cut services or bring in more revenue, so.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, other comments?
No, I agree with
Yeah.
the points that you made, that it was sort of shocking, but I think we really need to, and we sort of talked on this before, in our COG committees, really focus on prioritization, and I think the, particularly the fire piece, you know, the hiring of those code/fire people is really something that we weren't anticipating, but I think as we keep track on it, particularly through public safety, which is the committee I've been on, I think we're starting to see that maybe we might need to look, as volunteers decrease, etc., we may need to start looking more into that and just sort of be cognizant of it and keep an eye on it. Sean Kaufman had said that if we got to that point, he would sound the alarm. But I think this is sort of maybe like a little ring to let us know that we really need to keep looking into that and doing what we can to increase volunteerism for Alpha Fire Company or whatever, as a municipality, how we can help support that, and prioritizing fire and public safety, that sort of thing.
Thank you. Comments?
I just want to echo, of course, what both folks have said already here this evening, and I'm looking at this as kind of a little blip on the radar, much like our own budget here, where we know there are some large-scale, high price tag items that are just working their way through, and as we look at next year, we know we're going to be tightening everything in preparation for a balanced budget. And I expect, in the conversations I've had, that, you know, I would anticipate COG is going to be doing the same thing. We understand, right, that because of the additional cost of the firefighters and some other things, that it is a blip, I hope, and that this is not the norm, that we start to see these 10%, even the 8%, but to keep it closer to the rate of inflation and to really start cutting down in our individual areas is going to be an important thing that I know I'll be looking at as we go forward here. So nothing new to add, just again to offer my comments in support of what we've heard.
Thank you, Corey.
So I was one of the supervisors who also voted against adopting this budget in the COG meeting. I think I too was disappointed with the increase this year, but understanding there are some unusual circumstances, particularly in looking at the compensation changes to the COG staff is one example of those things. I think my vote of no was really a protest vote for the COG budget process, that it is broken and it needs to be fixed. I think I do agree that not just us, but our counterpart supervisors need to take their roles more seriously on committees, particularly when proposing anything new in the upcoming year. Because I'm very concerned that this will not be a one-time thing. If at some point there's going to have to be someone who says no on the COG, because from my limited time and being a part of it and asking questions about the process, it seems that no one wants to be the person that says no. And I think we're all going to have to get much better at that in the coming time. So here's to hoping that the COG budget process itself can be improved next year to take care of some of our concerns. I'll also just add that I also hope that unlike some of the other municipalities' recommendations about potentially even streamlining what the ratios in which the townships pay into certain things, I hope those formulas are revisited in other ways, given the disproportionate, I would argue, share that Ferguson Township pays under the current percentages.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. I agree. I think, it's the past 2 budget cycles have been very, very difficult. And just like Jeremy pointed out, there have been such significant increases in the percentage that municipalities are paying over the previous several years. And it's striking. And this being the second year in a row that we're seeing that leaves me even more concerned. And I think you're right, Patty. It is in those committees where we can keep some control, because every time we say, maybe we should study this, that adds a consultant or staff person. And while these are, we need to vet these ideas a little bit better and be a little bit more strategic about which things progress beyond that discussion point. When we got to the executive committee and reviewing the budget moving forward, and then at the general forum, there was a lot of discontent with the budget numbers, but there had been steps all along the way for any other municipality to cut things. And all the budget hearings, we sat in front of the department directors, and just like Corey said, it's very difficult to say no at those times, but that's where we have to be, pulling in the reins. And it's not that there is a disagreement about what would be nice to have, but these are the numbers we're going to see at the end if things keep expanding and increasing. So it's just a matter of coming to reality and saying, if we keep saying yes to all these things. So it is up to each person who's on those different committees to realize what is moving forward. And so, our board really took the time to go through the budget at that last cycle and say, here are things we could cut. And I believe we were the only ones who did that. And so it's difficult then to come to general forum and everybody's unhappy, but, there just wasn't that much effort put in. And if this kind of increase just continues, it's really unsustainable. So I think it's beyond the point that we have to look at. I think clearly the cap isn't working, because the budget came to us initially at that 8% cap that we had set, plus additional items. So the firefighters hadn't been added in at that point. And the municipalities had said that was to be prioritized in budgeting. So that's concerning that was still an add-on to the budget. And so, that is, again, something that those committees need to look at. And, staff certainly, and there were some staff changes, so I don't know how much that impacted the process this year. But nevertheless, I think, I'm going to take all of these comments to the Finance Committee meeting on Thursday and share them. And but it really is up to everybody to continue that moving forward. There's only, so many times you can say something, but it's going to be up to everybody who's on different committees to really reinforce some of these things that we're saying. So, just to say that, but we are here, and so, this is where it's at. We ended at 9%. I had the budget up here. I know some of the municipalities were at a 13% increase over last year, and so we were not that high. So I expect there to be even more comment from some of the others on Thursday at that meeting. Yeah.
It is kind of baffling, because if I recall correctly from looking at it, it seemed like some municipal shares and some municipalities went up like 20% or more, which a lot of money. But one thing I want to just get out on record, even though I had voted against this in general forum, I will vote to move this forward tonight. Because I support regional services. There's a lot of good regional services that our residents count on, libraries, parks. It's a tough decision, but at the end of the day, I want to be able to see our residents have the good regional services that they had this year and next year as well.
Agreed. And I just wanted to add, it is a 9.45% increase for us. And that's the lowest. The others are 11, 12, and 13% increases. So
No 20s.
Right, yeah. And that, I'm not sure where they were last year, but anyway, so I will carry all these comments forward and share them with the finance committee. And, just keep pressing on that.
And actually, if I may, related to whatever gets carried forward with the finance committee, I have found it rather surprising as part of the facilities committee that, so many meetings get canceled for whatever reasons. And I know in the past, another supervisor from another township was very surprised that a facilities meeting was canceled before budget season because they essentially said, well, are we going to be talking about the budget? And that never resurfaced. And it seemed to be one of those moot points, which was rather upsetting. So I don't know if that's something also that the finance committee can be aware of, that, I think we're hearing commitment from the supervisors here to be, very involved in the committees that we're associated with. And for my part, it'll be really forcing the conversation to ensure that we are looking at the budgets and not just, going through the calendar motions throughout the year.
That's a great point.
I'd like to follow up on that too, is that we need to strongly encourage the executive director of COG to take a more active role in this process. I think I'm worried about the same thing, that I'm seeing lots of cancellations coming in on COG meetings that could be times to discuss these very issues that we have, with the budget. But instead, these meetings are canceled. And I think that I think it needs stronger leadership. I will put myself on the record as saying that, as this is my last meeting, so no one can come after. But I have been surprised. Again, you set a cap. The cap was not followed. I believe that responsibility lies directly on the executive director of COG. And so I would like to see more of that responsibility shouldered there to ensure that we're not seeing this, because the result is that we now have townships and other municipalities that are backing out of services. And then that raises the cost to the rest of us. I think that is the reason why some of our that's one of the reasons we have an increase this year, because we have to cover, although it's a very small part of Half Moon's library share, we have to cover it now. Because the library didn't cut their budget, they're not going to be providing services out there, but I don't think they cut the budget based on the fact that Half Moon isn't contributing anymore.
There was still a shortfall.
Yeah. So I hate to see that continue, right? I can see a world in which if costs keep going up and up, that people will, that our partners will say like, well, I want out of the Parks Authority, for example. What happens then when a township asks for that? That would be disastrous for the other townships that are still involved in the authority. So I think unless the COG gets this under control, that is what I foresee as the consequence of that. Will be more townships pulling out of different parts that they don't think they need anymore, like the library.
Good point about the canceled meetings. I never really thought about it that way, but yeah, that really changes the dynamic when it comes to these expenditures. And if I even hear some other comments that you're saying, right, it sounds like it's easy in committee to say, sure, we want to spend $1 million on something, but is it really practical? It's easy to, be for it in committee, but when that budget comes, you're essentially writing the check at that point.
And I think that's part of it, is we don't discuss the costs when we're talking about doing a study on something or moving something forward. That's not the level of discussion that occurs there. So it's being mindful about that there is a cost associated with every activity or new plan. So any other comments on this? We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? And if not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. All right, thank you, everyone. Okay, we'll move to a public hearing on a resolution of the Township of Ferguson, Center County, Pennsylvania, repealing Resolution 2228 and establishing a new Ferguson Township schedule of fees. And we'll go to the manager.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At the December 5th regular meeting, the Board of Supervisors were asked to review the draft 2024 schedule of fees and authorize for a public hearing, which is being held and conducted this evening. The 2024 schedule of fees is now updated and with the approved changes as motioned by the board. Also provided is a copy of a proposal for the sewage enforcement officer services provided by the Center Region Code Administration as done annually. These proposed fees for these services are included in the 2024 schedule of fees. Provided with the agenda is a copy of the resolution advertised for public hearing. Also provided with the agenda is a recommended motion for the board's consideration.
All right, thank you. This is a public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing and ask for any comments from the public on this item. And seeing none, I will close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
I, Mr. Thompson, move that the Board of Supervisors adopt a resolution repealing Resolution 2022-28 and establishing the new Ferguson Township schedule of fees for 2024.
This is Corey, I second.
Okay, any discussion on this item? And seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a roll call vote for Resolution 2023-38. Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Gracie Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Heller?
Yes.
Ms. Strickland?
Yes,
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously.
thank you. Okay, we'll move to a continued discussion and authorization to select the Ferguson Township Pollutant Reduction Plan project option. We'll go to Mr. Modiker.
Good evening. I will start the discussion, but I'm sure it'll end up being a team discussion. You may recall at the last meeting, Aaron and our consultant provided you a presentation. Aaron had indicated he wouldn't be available tonight, but you might see his name on the screen, so his event did get canceled. He wanted to attend mostly to listen, but in the event that we do, want his input, he is here, just so you know. Also in the packet are all of the presentation material that was provided at the last meeting. Tonight, I think you might want to focus some of the discussion on the options that were presented. And there's a slide in the packet that indicates those three options. And option one included Beaver Branch and slab cabin. And if you recall that option, the estimate to complete that work was close to $1 million. A second option was Beaver Branch and slab cabin, and the cost estimate to complete those two was approximately $1.25 million. And then there was a third option that included the Beaver Branch and partnering in the duck pond known as A3. There's more details on that. That option was around $490,000. Part of the discussion involved, the pros and cons of buying credits for the duck pond. The obvious pros is that there are lower upfront costs, right? One of the potential downsides is that although there are no annual maintenance costs, which is good, at some time in the future, the armoring will likely need to be replaced. We don't know if it's 20 years from now or 50 years from now or more. So that's a little bit of an unknown, but we do know that if we partner in that project, that at some future date, there'll be some capital expense to replace and pay for our share that we're buying into. The other two projects, the one on Beaver Branch and the one on Slab Cabin, are entirely within Ferguson Township. I would say the Slab Cabin is the more challenging of those two projects. The Beaver Branch project being not quite as steep and not dealing with quite some of the same environmental issues in the fish habitat and whatnot. So at this point, I think what I'll do is pause and let the board enter into discussions, ask questions, and see how we can help with the decision-making. Ultimately, if possible, we would like some direction from the board tonight so that we can move on to the next step, which would be to ask our consultant for a supplement, a cost estimate, to do the final design of whatever project is chosen, and obviously eliminate the work needed for anything that's eliminated. And then if we do decide to partner with Penn State on the duck pond, I believe there's a draft letter in the packet, and they'll need some assurances that we do want to partner with them. Okay, now I'll stop.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
All right. Whoever wants to start with some discussion, questions, preferences?
I'll start with a question, just so I understand how we are, what the thought process behind how we're paying for this. So I just want to make sure I understand. Essentially, these are the projects that we are collecting the stormwater fee for. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Currently, oh no, that has to do with Park Hills. Never mind.
Okay. Then my next question is, what currently, because I'm assuming you've had to budget for these projects because they've been coming up for a while, how much is in the budget currently to take care of these projects?
So if we look at next year's operating budget, and I had all this information last week, so I'll have to look it up, but there is funding for the projects, and I believe the current cost estimates came in, I believe, less than the budgeted amount. It's possible that the easement acquisition might be a little bit more because the initial cost estimate had stone walls and this one has the slopes laid back. So there's a little bit of more easement acquisition. But overall, I would say, interestingly, after the preliminary design, the estimated costs have gone down from what we anticipated in the budget.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Others?
I'm just, I want to maybe put my vote out there for option 3. I think after the presentation that we had last week, the idea of the A3 alternate duck plan with Penn State and everything makes a lot of sense to me. From a risk standpoint, where Penn State has the risk for maintaining, it's not our township resources that are maintaining it. Essentially, we cut the check to make sure that they continue to do that maintenance. So I think because of the risk profile there and the fact that it does come in much less than some of the other options that we have there, that would probably be where I'm leaning to this evening.
Thank you. Jeremy or Patty?
I tend to agree with Matt, and realizing that this is sort of, again, a regional water affair.
Yeah.
So I think I would be inclined to go with the most cost-effective that meets our requirements.
Thank you, Jeremy.
I'd gravitate towards option 3 as well. Mostly, why I'm definitely agreeing that we need to invest in stormwater infrastructure and keep that the integrity of that system sound. It has concerned me with many large projects in recent years how the cost have exponentially gone past budget estimates, if not the budget itself, which keeps me hesitant towards supporting options 1 or 2.
Thanks. I agree. I think, I was leaning toward option 3. I'm concerned about the complexity with anything along Water Street and the A4 items and the potential for increased costs there and challenges. So I've been concerned about that one, and I like that option 3 we're still doing a significant project in the township. And, next cycle, we don't know yet what that's gonna require of us, you know, what kinds of projects we'll be looking at, and so there might be a good option next cycle for us to do something else in the township. And so I think this helps us stay within budget, and I think I'm very comfortable with option 3 as well, so.
Just to kind of add to that too, I think this conversation is apropos of the one we just had about COG, where this is this 1 year, you know, we understand there's some big costs with Park Hills drainage, et cetera, this year and some other things. So what can we do to reduce costs, but also lean into this maybe differently in the future to see what other ways we have of earning credits besides maintaining streamways and everything else. So what other alternatives do we have in there that are more cost effective? So I would encourage, I guess, us as supervisors and, you know, staff as well, to look at what opportunities we have in those other areas to, again, keep costs low, to make sure that we're meeting the minimum of a non-funded mandate. So,
Yeah, good point.
thanks.
Yes.
Pretty sure I know which option's gonna be selected, but before you vote, I just wanted to make sure that you did get some information that, or maybe you didn't, I'm not sure, but the stormwater engineer did prepare some life cycle costs and to give an idea what annual costs may be. So just throwing that out there, and I'll be quiet again.
Thanks so much for that, and
Yes.
thanks to Aaron for putting that together. That was really helpful. And that is in our agenda. Any other discussion, comments?
I think the only comment that I'll share, I mean, I too will reluctantly agree with option 3, but I am concerned just about the long-term decision that we are making for future boards. By not picking a project within our own township that we can control and keep track of and maintain, we are going to be kicking a cost down to some board 20 years in the future that we wouldn't incur otherwise for savings now. So I want to be mindful of that. I'm also mindful of how large our deficit is this particular year because of other things that are going on. So I'm coming to grips with that cost that we are putting forward at this particular time. But I just wanted to make sure that was said out loud, because I appreciate the analysis that was done in showing that. That was what I thought it was going to show when we were talking about it last time, about the different options. I also I will say I do have a little bit of a concern too at what our residents think when we're collecting a stormwater fee locally to fund a project that is not within our township borders. Now I understand the logistics of how this actually works, right? And we've had enough presentations that I get why we can do that and why that's okay, that we're improving that particular watershed that runs through our township. But without the kind of lengthy explanations that I have had, I could see some of our residents who are already not thrilled, to put it kindly, with the stormwater fee, wondering why we're essentially going to give that money to pay for a Penn State project. So just raising that concern too.
And I appreciate that. I will say, in a presentation that I listened to about stormwater fees, you kind of have to look at it a little more regionally, in the sense that, so while it's not in our borders, there is like the load. So for instance, if in fact we're not taking care of, controlling flow along the way further down, it could create a block. And then in our township, so it is all about, part of a web, a system, if you will. So we also do have to consider what's happening downstream as well. That's just the nature of water systems, etc. So I appreciate it. But it is an argument about, what you put in is maybe your sediment is flowing down to someone else, and so along the way. And if it's cost effective, it helps. Again, we're sort of in a tight crunch here with the end of this particular cycle.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And you both have good points, and I think it's important to acknowledge that we are passing something else down the line, and I think we're feeling the repercussions of that when we look at something like Park Hills Drainage Way that we're undertaking right now, which has not been addressed after many, many years. And so, you know, it is just kind of the cycle of how things go sometimes. And like I said, I am pleased that there will be part of this that is a project in the township. And, you know, hopefully as this mandate evolves and we're able to, you know, meet these different requirements in different ways, we'll be able to do more just within the township. But I appreciate, you know, looking at it regionally, I think is fair as well. So
So I have maybe a follow-up question to that, maybe that's for the township manager. Another scenario that I can foresee in coming up in public comment in the future about the stormwater fee is that we have selected a project that has come in way under the budget that we set up the stormwater fee to pay for. Why are we charging that stormwater fee rate then? I guess maybe I'm also looking for a little bit more understanding that, you know, we're only using the stormwater fee to fund these projects. That's the point of having that fee. It's not like it's improving our budget elsewhere. So I'm assuming that then we will have a surplus in the fee account that we would push forward to future projects that we'll have to continue to do. But I just want to understand that piece a little bit better, because I just know there's anxiety about the stormwater fee in our community and trying to get ahead of what this decision might do to either aggravate that or alleviate it.
I think that's a great question. I appreciated all the comments thus far by the board members. I would acknowledge that prior to the adoption of the stormwater fee, the township had engaged a consultant to do a feasibility study, and as part, at the conclusion of that, one of the outcomes was a level of service, right? So as part of the collection of the stormwater fee, there had been, and you know, perhaps the director of public works can speak on the number of years out, right? The stormwater fee really yields there's already a predetermined plan in terms of what levels of service should look like. I think that it's been tweaked already at this point, just based off of budgetary discussions by the board. But to more accurately state the comment, I'll acknowledge that the stormwater fee is not solely for the MS4 permit projects. In part, the stormwater fee is to offset these costs, the unfunded mandate, but it's actually to manage our stormwater infrastructure. So we have 44 miles of pipe, infrastructure, stormwater pipe, and that has to be managed. And I think I think the board had made a decision to, and probably just to kind of, you know, assess more long-term, but there was a reduction from what staff had proposed for the stormwater maintenance of the infrastructure for 2024. And that is actually the conversation, I think, in future years we can talk a little bit more, because that actually impacts the level of service that the township committed to doing as a result of the collection of that stormwater fee. And then I'll also just acknowledge for board's consideration, you know, I think everything that's been shared are good points, and I would suspect that staff will receive calls, quite frankly, with either option that you choose, because there's likely, you know, a position that your constituents will have concerns, appreciation, and everything ranging in between. And staff can certainly field those calls and provide some education, and we find that increased education helps increase awareness and understanding. You know, you may recall that the township received a grant from DCED for the strategic management program, and part of that is to do an analysis and understand the township's policies, standard operating procedures, but particularly policies like the stormwater fee can be assessed and become a priority to better understand the fee and the appropriation by the board for the stormwater management, to understand what a long-term plan might look like for an economical decision, or I should say recommendation from the state that the board might consider, because I know that we've discussed a lot about stormwater fee, and there's been a lot of concerns and questions in terms of should we continue it. As you know, the decision right now has yet to be given from the federal level, the Westchester Borough and versus Westchester University. It has been challenged, and it's my understanding that the state has requested for extensions, which is why we haven't yet heard, the state hasn't heard that case. Once we have that decision, you know, I imagine the board will want to have further discussion on that. And then hopefully we'll even be able to hear from the state following the analysis of our budgets for a recommendation on a multi-year budget recommendation, including an emphasis on the stormwater fee collection and the stormwater fee management.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Can I just-
Oh, sorry, I just wanted to see if Dave wanted to say anything
I
else on that.
I can add some to it if you'd like. The cost of, excuse me, the cost of service model that used the level of service that the manager described was, I believe, it was a 7 or 8 year projection. And when that was done, there were estimates for Park Hills drainage and for the PRP projects. The actual cost for the Park Hill drainage has increased. And so Fund 20 at times is supplemented by the general fund, so the fee's not quite covering that. The hope is that after the spikes go through with these PRP and the big projects and they level out, then the fee more accurately, you know, reflects those costs. And I think one of the actions that the manager and the board, you know, has taken because of the high cost of the Park Hills and project is a reduction in the funding for the pipelining and the pipe cleaning contract. So, you know, hopefully they level out in the future. Does that help with some of that answer? Okay.
And I'll just add before we move on to Patty's question, that in the ordinance, we do set a guideline, a parameter of the balance that can be held within there, and I don't want to quote what it is because I can't off the top of my head, but there won't be a outstanding large balance held in there, so we would reduce the fee if there was excess funds within the Fund 20. Patty.
Yeah, actually, I was just, all the talk was something that I wanted to circle back to from your report. Did the pipelining start this week?
The pipe lining did not start yet, but the liners are to be delivered tonight to the township building.
Okay.
So they're supposed to be starting
That's so funny.
tomorrow.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, it's a little frustrating that it's been tough to get them here. So thanks for your patience. The pipe cleaning is underway.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they are in town.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
And I guess if you just want to speak a little bit to the cost of this project in relation to the budget, what we had allocated for MS4.
Give me just a moment to get
Sure.
that. Almost there. So we're looking at the 2024 operating, not the CIP, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Engineering specialties, 467,000. This is design of PRP projects on sections of Slab Cabin Run and Beaver Branch. In 2024, funds appropriated for permits, final design estimated at 200,000, geotechnical investigations, 25,000, right-of-way acquisitions, appraisals, easements, legals, 200,000. So that total is 467,000. I would say a good portion of that, the lion's share of that would be the slab cabin run project. But even if you divided it in half, there's, some 230,000 for each.
Okay.
So the construction would be in 2025. So that's where I'd have to look at the CIP to look at that estimate for construction. But the construction estimate was higher than the current estimate by Aaron, our consultant.
Okay. That answers it,
Is that
yeah.
good there?
Yep, great,
Okay.
thank you.
Because I can get it out of the CIP if you want.
No, I think that answered the question, I
Okay.
think. Okay. Any other discussion? Thanks so much for
Yeah,
all of that. It's an
absolutely.
important discussion. Complicated, no easy answers. If there's no other discussion, does someone care to make a motion?
This is Patty. I move that the Board of Supervisors approve option 3.
And this is Matt, I'll second.
Okay, any other discussion? If not, and this is not a public hearing. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. All right, and thank you again, and thanks to Aaron as well. Okay, so we will move to new business, and the first item is the consent agenda with 4 items. Did anyone care to remove anything from the consent agenda? And if not, would someone like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
This is Corey. I move we approve the consent agenda.
I, Mr. Thompson, will second the motion.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. All right, thank you. Okay, we'll move to a public hearing on a resolution of the Township of Ferguson Center County, Pennsylvania, levying taxes and assessments for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2024 and ending December 31st, 2024. And we'll go to the manager.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Provided with the agenda is a copy of the resolution advertised for public hearing establishing taxes and assessments for the fiscal year 2024 beginning January 1, 2024 to December 31st, 2024. Real estate taxes remain the same at 2.422 mils. Real estate transfer tax remains at 1.25% of the consideration or value of the transfer. Earned income tax remains at 1.4%, and local services tax remains at $52 per person, $5 of which is remitted to the State College Area School District, and the remaining $47 is remitted to the township. There are no proposed changes for the fire hydrant assessment or the streetlight assessment. Additionally, the stormwater management utility fee remains the same at 2023 at $119 per ERU, which is equivalent residential unit for properties inside the regional growth boundary sewer service area, and $75 per ERU for properties outside the regional growth boundary sewer service area. Provided with the agenda is a recommended motion for your consideration.
Thank you. And this is a public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing for any comments from the public on this item. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
I, Mr. Thompson, will move that the Board of Supervisors adopt a resolution levying taxes and assessments for the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2024 and ending December 31, 2024.
This is Patty. I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? No? All right, well, thank you very much to the manager for the presentation of this. And we've had a motion and a second, and this is a roll call vote.
Yes, this is a roll call vote for Resolution 2023-39. Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Gracie Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Heller?
Yes.
Ms. Strickland?
Yes.
Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. So we'll move to a public hearing on a resolution of the Township of Ferguson, Center County, Pennsylvania, repealing Resolution 22-30 and adopting a revised compensation plan for non-uniformed employees with an effective date of January 1st, 2024. We'll go back to the manager.
Thank you. The Board of Supervisors annually approves by resolution the compensation plan for non-uniformed employees for the upcoming fiscal year. The 2024 annual operating budget includes an increase of 4.3% for cost of living adjustment, and provided in the agenda is a resolution for the board to authorize and adopt a revised compensation plan and salary range to reflect the adjustments made to wages and salaries. And provided with the agenda is a recommended motion for the board's consideration.
Thank you. And this is a public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing for any comment on this item. And seeing none, I will close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
This is Patty. I move that the Board of Supervisors adopt the resolution.
This is Corey, I second.
Any discussion on this item? And seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Thank you. This is a roll call vote for Resolution 2023-40. Mr. Gracie Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Heller,
Yes.
Ms. Strickland,
Yes.
Ms. Stevens,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion for resolution passes unanimously.
Thank you. And we will move to a public hearing on a resolution of the Township of Ferguson, Center County, Pennsylvania, establishing contributions to the police pension fund by its members. We'll go back to the manager.
Thank you. And provided with the agenda is a narrative restating similar to what was shared, only in accordance with Pennsylvania Act 205, the Board of Supervisors is required to establish an annual contribution rate, if any, by members of the police pension. Provided with the agenda is a copy of the resolution advertised for public hearing. Also provided is a recommended motion for the board's consideration.
Thank you. And this is a public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing for any comments on this item. And seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
I, Mr. Thompson, move that the Board of Supervisors adopt a resolution establishing contributions to the police pension fund by its members.
This is Corey, I second.
Okay, any discussion on this item? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Resolution 2023-41. Mr. Heller,
Yes.
Ms. Strickland,
Yes.
Ms. Stevens,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Mr. Gracie Griffin.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. So we'll move to discussion on proposed 2024 Board of Supervisors regular meeting and special meetings for review of capital improvement plan and annual operating budget.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So similar to what was done in 2022, at the end of the year, the board discussed annual meetings to try and identify dates that the board could essentially discuss and vet in advance of the upcoming special meetings within 6 to 8 weeks, as previously done. Provided with the agenda in the narrative are proposed dates for consideration. I do recognize after presenting these dates and having it published that there is a conflict with the holiday. The proposed CIP tour for June 19th actually is now considered a holiday for Ferguson Township, so that will need to be discussed and revisited. But that is the purpose of this discussion, is for the board to review the proposed dates and times and determine what we would like to plan for the 2024 year.
Thank you. And I'll just say one other conflict I know of is the first date, June 25th, is CCMPO at that same time. That's 6 p.m. So did want to note that. Any other conflicts that anybody else knows of for any of these dates? Okay. So do we want to try to find another date for the road tour right now, or hold off?
I would suggest that we explore an alternative date. I guess the first question would be if the conflict with the June 25th date, is the board suggesting that we move that day? Because that would determine then perhaps when we want to hold this CIP road tour.
Yeah, I mean, I'll look for some feedback. There's no CCMPO meeting in May, I believe, or in, is it running in April? Oops. Yeah, maybe we'll hold off. I don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering, just looking at the calendar this year, they were both held CIPs back to back on the 12th and the 13th of July. So it's great that they're moved up. I think a little extra time is appreciated. I'm wondering, do we look at like the 26th and then the 27th? Just going back to back as we did this year? I noticed, of course, this year too, it was a conflict with Arts Festival. So again, we're not hitting that because it's in late June, so thank you. Again, I guess I would be looking at maybe moving the 25th meeting to the 26th.
Works for me.
I'd be okay with that, and I'll look to staff.
So that could work. We held it over the lunch hour this year, so having staff, and I think we have, is that a first and the third? So that is, yeah, we could arrange for that. And then staff would be present just for their agenda, like for their items for that evening, for that special meeting. Trying to think. So you're proposing the 26th and the 27th? Wednesday and Thursday?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, normally missing one committee meeting, I'm just gonna suggest that, because there is no meeting in June of CCMPO or July and August, so the June one is the only one between April and September. So I'd hate to miss it, but I don't want to throw off the whole.
Yeah, I think that would work. For some, I confirmed we do not have a meeting that Tuesday, that week. For some reason, I hesitated, but yes, that would be fine. We could do June 26th and June 27th.
Okay. Thoughts?
And yeah, I would be good with that. I'm wondering, do we make it a township week and have the road tour that Monday?
Now, will we have general forum that Monday, the 24th, in the evening? So the road tour would be during the day.
Could we do the road tour on the 17th, the Monday before, June 19th?
Mm-hmm. I'm okay with that. Or the Thursday or Friday. Yeah, any of those dates right now are wide open. 6 months from now.
Okay. So then Monday, June 17th.
Yeah, or the 24th, Matt, or not the 24th. I mean, it wouldn't conflict with general forum because it's in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have a supervisors meet. No, I guess we went on that Tuesday, the 25th. So I'd be a fan of either one.
Yeah, so
Either.
one's fine for me, so we can, whatever
Okay.
staff prefers.
I'll look to Dave with the 24th of June.
I don't have anything at this time, so I'll probably
Okay.
work around it.
June.
I should mention I'm out of the country that week, so everybody have fun.
All right. So
Kidding.
You can zoom in.
All right. I made that
Cell phone in
correction.
the van.
Yeah.
All right.
24th?
Yes, Monday, June 24th. And then we'll follow up with a specific time, but it
Okay.
would be during the day.
Great, so I have now CIP special meeting number 1, 6 PM on the 26th, that's Wednesday. And then number 2 is the same, and then road tour is June 24th.
You're gonna have a busy week.
It should also be noted that for the other meeting on September 19th, it is Talk Like a Pirate Day that day. So be prepared.
Okay, good to know.
I'm all in.
Silly me.
Can I wear an eye patch?
Everyone has enough notice.
I was gonna say, are we going into this picnic?
I was gonna say, I might come back
dressed
for
up
that
as
one,
pirates?
just to see what happens.
I think so.
I can be that one. You're part of the ABC, right?
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. Do
I will
that.
be there. I will be there for that.
So that ABC, oh, sorry, was that that's a Thursday, okay. The ABC dinner is a Thursday, and then budget on the 24th and 29th of October. No other issues with those? Okay.
Great. So I will use this time to share with the board that we did poll the ABC appreciation event attendees to see if there was more interest in doing a park dinner, you know, like a park dinner picnic, or if holding it at the Ramada as previously done in the past. And it was about even. I think we got like a 9 to 8. So I'll just look to the board to see if there's preference. If there's no preference, then I'm inclined to suggest that we do every other year. And so this year we would do, unless if the board would suggest otherwise, a Ramada Inn in 2024 and then 2025 picnic. Unless if you would like to direct otherwise.
Yeah, well, I think let's consider it and think about, I think that approach, I would agree with that, going back and forth.
So if we do it the Ramada, we'll want to make those reservations just to be on the safe side as early as March. So I'll plan
Any
on
thoughts on
reserving, and as well as the park, we have to reserve the park as well, so.
Any thoughts?
I like the rotation.
Yeah, I like that too.
The parks was a little bit of a different concept even here at the Public Works Building, but considering the last few years, just trying to get spaces where there was more space and fresh air, you know, it was very nice for a change. It
Yeah,
was a nice change.
it was.
Do I recall something about the Ramada, though, going through some renovations and potential closures next?
Probably thinking tough trees.
No, the,
Oh.
yeah, South African. Okay, but if they're taking
I
reservations.
do recall that they were closed for an extended period of time following COVID, but it's my understanding that they've opened back up, and I have not heard otherwise that they were closing.
Okay.
But, you know, if they, in a scenario where they were, we would just find another, you know, conference room area or, you know, room.
Banquet room, yeah,
Banquet room that
yeah.
we could reserve. The banquet's just what we've always done in
Yeah.
the past. And there was a lot of interest in doing the park picnic. And so when we got feedback from the attendees, and it was, you know, equal interest, and some wanted the park picnic, some wanted more of the banquet room style. So figured we'd do a rotation. So we'll check with the Ramada Inn, and if we can move there or do that for 2024, we will. Otherwise, we'll find another location that's banquet style. And we'll
Right,
do a
yeah.
park picnic in 2025.
I like that, especially since the ABC members were kind of split on what to do. This offers everybody something, so, yeah, that's great. Okay, well, if that is all good, we do have a motion in the agenda. Would someone like to make the motion noting the changes that we've made?
Oh, this is Patty. I move that the Board of Supervisors approve the tentative 2024 regular meeting and special meeting schedule, as well as the ABC Appreciation Dinner, noting the change that our road tour will be on Monday, June 24th, and the first CIP special meeting is going to be held, I'm sorry, I forget when.
Wednesday, the 26th.
Wednesday, the 26th.
And this is Matt, I'll second.
Okay, any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. All right, thank you. Okay, we will move to a public hearing and a decision on a conditional use permit application for 3610 West College Avenue, BDC Holdings, Inc., and we'll go to Jenna Wargo.
Thank you. An application for a conditional use permit for the use of property located at 3610 West College Avenue has been filed with the township. The applicant is requesting conditional use approval for a 3,000 square foot outdoor self-storage pad for their proposed 85,000 square foot self-storage facility. Township zoning ordinance and the municipality's planning code requires public hearing on the application. As part of that approval, the board may attach reasonable conditions and safeguards related to the conditional use standards detailed in the zoning ordinance. The board will now hold a public hearing on the application for a conditional use permit. Chair Strickland will conduct the hearing. Following the public hearing, if no additional testimony is provided, the board will review the draft decision prepared by myself. Based on the record, the board may notice I included as an exhibit the recording from the November 6th meeting because the applicant was there to provide that testimony, so that is now included in the record of the decision as well. And the board is asked to review and discuss the draft decision and take final action to approve or deny the conditional use permit.
Great, thank you. So this is a public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing and ask for any comments on this item. And seeing none, I will close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
This is Matt. I'll go ahead and make a motion that the Board of Supervisors hold a public hearing, review the draft decision, and approve the conditional use permit application for 3610 West College Avenue.
This is Corey, I second.
Okay, discussion on this item. Or any comments? And seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a roll call vote for 2023-43. Ms. Strickland?
Yes.
Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Gracie Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Heller?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move to a public hearing on a resolution of the Township of Ferguson, Center County, Pennsylvania on a settlement agreement with HRI, and we'll go to Dave Modriker.
Thank you. Attached in your packet, you'll find a settlement agreement between the township and HRI. The settlement agreement's in lieu of continued litigation between the township and HRI, which is some over 10 years old, related to a dispute that arose after the construction, and I'll read my notes, of contract dated October 21st, 2010, also referred to as ECMS contract 87154. It's because it was a contract let by PennDOT. That's why you have an ECMS number. Pertaining to the construction of stormwater basins identified on the plans as Basin 1 and Basin 2. Those basins are along Blue Course Drive, the largest between Blue Course Drive and Old Block Road, the smaller in front of what was once known as Blue Course Medical, that medical facility. That's called Basin 2. And those basins were incidental to the construction of Old Gatesburg Road. I'll pause there.
Okay.
I can describe the settlement terms if you didn't have a chance to look at them or answer any questions you might have.
What we could do is, I'll go ahead and do the public hearing, and then if we have, after we do a motion, we'll come back with additional questions. Okay. So this is a public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing for comments on this item. And seeing none, I will close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
This is Corey. I move that the Board of Supervisors authorize the manager to execute the settlement agreement with HRI on behalf of Ferguson Township.
This is Patty, I'll second.
Thank you. Okay, discussion or questions? I didn't have, there's pretty thorough information. Corey, did you have something?
I just want to confirm that what I read, which is, it appears that HRI is going to provide supplies and we are doing the work.
That is correct.
Excellent.
Great, okay, any other discussion? All right, seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a roll call vote for 2023-44. Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Gracie Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Heller?
Yes.
Ms. Strickland?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, so we will move to continue discussion for approval of the 2024 authorities, boards, and commission work plans, and we'll go to the manager.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Provided with the agenda are the revised work plans to incorporate the edits, amendments that were discussed by the Board of Supervisors, and is presented with the agenda packet for continued discussion by the board for approval.
Thank you. Okay, we could start with discussion on this item. And I am just flipping back to the work plans. Any, I really only had comments on the Pine Grove Mills plan, so were there any other comments on anything else? We'll hit that one last. So we have Tree Commission, Parks Committee, Planning Commission. Any comments on any of those? Seeing none, we had a lot of conversation about Pine Grove Mill small area plan, so I figured we'll have the most on that. I have a lot of notes from our discussion last time and some different things, so I'll open it up for comments or let me bring it up. I don't think I have comments on maybe 5 items. I don't think we need to go through each one by one. Any specific or general?
No, I
comments?
made my comments last time, and I'm just looking forward to this conversation.
I can run through mine, and if anybody has things to add through there. It was really just kind of narrowing the language a little bit and bringing some things back from the plan. So on item 1, for instance, there was, this was about, let's see, sorry, item number 2, capital improvements program. So maybe just specifying there that it's not, that the committee needs to attend those meetings or provide a plan for that, that it will be, I'm flipping between my notes and my webpage here, that it would maybe read staff can advise on items that would need to be considered as part of the CIP. So just kind of adding some clarifying language so ABC members coming in can understand this is not a plan they need to prepare. This is that staff will advise them when they're discussing something. That's a CIP item. And then staff is also acknowledging, okay, I'll bring this up when that comes. So that was one comment. Item 4 was village saldo and zoning district, and there was some language right in the small area plan that we could add in there, and that would be from, let's see, action 5. It's from a couple of the action points. So develop a zoning overlay district. It notes the responsibility is to Ferguson Township, maybe possibly a consultant, amending the ordinance to allow for compatible uses. So my suggestion was just to bring some of the language from the small area plan into that. And then I have a comment here about lowering the priority of that, and that was based on some of our discussion last time and reflects another item that we'll get to later. So what I gathered from our last discussion was to lower this to a medium priority. The next thing I had was on identify locations to identify as community gathering spaces. I think that's item 6. Refers to this township acting as the partner. So I think this responsibility PGM residents. I think the only thing I would say there, and this might apply to another one, is just being really clear about what the board is asking. So I guess so that we're not asking them to go hold a meeting outside of the Pine Grove Mills Smaller Plan Advisory Committee meeting with other community space owners. So I'm pointing to the fact that we just need to be clear in what we're tasking them with here. And so that if that is one person on the committee is tasked with just making a list of places, and then they're gonna go look at them and report back, and maybe there's another step beyond that, but that would just need to really be walked through with staff so that everyone's aware of what everybody's doing. That, the item on including history of Pine Grove Mills on the Facebook and Pine Grove Mills on the PGM Facebook page and website, I think there was just concern over resource allocation and equitability amongst ABCs. So just to make sure that whatever is occurring in one ABC, it needs to be applied equally. So if we're allocating resources to one, that we're not ignoring others. So I think there was just an acknowledgement there of everything takes time. And so we don't want to monopolize the communication coordinator's time with any one thing. So maybe we add phases in for that or something, or just acknowledge that as time permits, something, as staff identifies time permits, something to that effect. And I would look to staff to kind of, monitor that there's equitability there.
I think that's a good point. It's certainly something that was discussed when this was initiated. I think there's a subcommittee that had previously been really active with getting content for the Facebook account and the web page, and I think it worked out for a period of time. But in terms of equitable, it is not currently considered equitable, right? We don't have a web page for our other ABCs. And it's one of those, conversations that I think we can explore. And if it's something that we want to do to really elevate, and raise awareness among our residents about the work that's being done within and among the ABCs, it really might be a additional conversation about increased resources, because our communications coordinator, while there may be some time to provide assistance with this, if, say, for example, the tree commission wanted to have a web page and have it maintained frequently, or have it maintained and updated frequently, or the parks committee, I think the board should really consider that might lead to increased requests for personnel. So I think, I'll just look to the board to really consider all of that.
So I think the question for now is, do we just take this off for right now, and maybe this could be applied later, or do we try to resolve that right now, which seems like kind of a heavy lift?
I would look to the board really to determine. We looked at the Pine Grove Mill Small Area Plan, and I think here it was added under comments. The responsibility language was transferred from the Pine Grove Mill Small Area Plan to this specifically, and in reference to whose responsibility, or how did the Pine Grove Mill Small Area Plan identify the responsibility? So Ferguson Township's listed for some of those recommended items, and residents are recommended for some of those items. So I think that's for further board consideration as to how you might want to continue allocating resources to accommodate and achieve the recommendations that were in the Pine Grove Mill Small Area Plan. Good thoughts?
If I may, I think this really speaks to the need for the Pine Grove Mills, I should just say, the Pine Grove Mills community to have a nonprofit, a group that does these things that are not really related to the ABCs, but are really specific about Pine Grove Mills, unique to Pine Grove Mills, that don't fall in the purview of things that may be related to the township or not, such as, the Facebook page or the Our Town, the next one, the next item that we have there. Community gathering places, etc. I think those can all be done locally by the residents and then communicated to the township to say, hey, carry it forward as a point of note that then the township can carry forward appropriately through their normal communications, etc. So I think that a couple of these just need to be teased out and maybe separated into community responsibilities that fall outside of the Pine Grove Mill Small Area Plan Advisory Committee, and those things that maybe resonate more closely to the committee and are also involved with township staff. So I think we just have to take a harder look at that.
I agree. So are you saying for this particular one to maybe hold off on this one? I think the discussion that you're suggesting makes a lot of sense to maybe incorporate into the work plan is how our items that were assigned to residents and the community facilitated. So there is a distinction there. There's a line between what's part of the committee with the township and what we recognized when we were making the plan could be done by residents. And so how do we, now that we're implementing this, how does that happen? And so I think that's actually a really important step in this, because even when we were making the plan, we acknowledged a lot of this is going to have to be done by community members. And so I am thinking that needs to be a discussion that's held.
And that could be what the board may want to consider removing the items as discussed, and adding in as a plan implementation review for discussion, which items as indicated in the Pine Grove Mill Small Area Plan should be removed for the committee, from the committee's list and designated to residents. And that could be a task of itself, is just going back and pulling up the Pine Grove Mill Small Area Plan to the recommendation section and reviewing, who's taking what, who's taking ownership over what tasks. And then kind of from that point on,
and what's
adjusting
that next
this
step?
work plan.
Exactly.
Adjusting the work plan.
I think that's the place to lead that conversation too, and then bring it out to the community. So, I guess I'd look for assistance in wording that really clearly. And maybe this one in particular is one we can bring back. So I hate to delay it again, but I think crafting a separate item just on this will add a lot of clarity to plan implementation for the future. And I think may help get other things rolling along that really are outside the purview of the committee, but could very well be picked up and taken by other residents. So
we can revise this one again. I mean, this committee doesn't meet until I think the third or fourth Thursday of the month in January. So there's time to amend it and bring it back to the board in the January 2nd meeting.
okay, yeah, so if we can add one item that is focused on that, pulling out resident assigned tasks and discussing and deciding on how to facilitate handing off that information, because that information just isn't really floating around either. That, hey, these are things that we've identified would help the community. Okay, so that is great. Before I move on, other comments on this item?
I just want to say, not to speak for the committee members, but I think this would be welcome because, when we adopted the Pine Grove Mill Small Area Plan back in 2019, we never really sat down to say, well, how does this now work? And, we've been doing, with staff leadership and everything, there's been a lot of good work in that space, but I think this is really the time that we have to take a good look at, okay, wait a minute, these are opportunities for the residents, and these are things that maybe fall closer to the township, and how do those two entities work together and collaboratively. So I appreciate it actually being put maybe in black and white to reinforce and build on that relationship.
Other comments?
It kind of reminds me of talking about the plan during the planning commission. There was a couple planning commission members a few years ago that were like, "Oh, this Pine Grove Mills almost needs like its own mayor for this or something." But maybe some resident volunteer liaison that can kind of coordinate those resident participation items.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, that's
At
exactly
least
it.
somebody that
So
can
I
work
think-
between staff where shorter meetings, then that resident goes out and drums up that community engagement.
Mhm. Yeah, okay.
And if I could just add to that, related, right, we had the Community in Action Group, the CIA of Pine Grove Mills
Yeah.
that did all of this. And so there are those community events and things that were doing while they're dissolving right now, that I think is rife for a new group to step into that role and work closely with the township and the members of the Pine Grove Mills Small Area Plan Advisory Committee. So I'm glad that we're having this conversation now to carry that conversation forward.
Yeah, very good, okay. I only had two more things. One was on item 9, and this is working with local businesses and townships financial office to understand what tax incentives would be beneficial. So this was item 9, so this was prepare a study to determine what tax incentives would benefit local business recruitment and retention. I think a study could be expensive, and so I'm concerned about the expense in something like that. I think there had been an item related to this that was create just a list of businesses. And maybe, engage with them in some way. And so there was a different item that was related to this, but a little bit of a initial start rather than diving into the study on tax incentives. So I'm concerned about that, but was interested in the list of businesses there.
And I would absolutely agree with adding that back in, just create the list of businesses and maybe discuss what incentives those business owners may have, or what incentives they would have liked to have seen to come to Pine Grove Mills, or what others. That, to me, is something that's doable in the year plan, is just to identify them and maybe have some light conversations. But again, this is where it gets into that gray area. I would imagine staff would have to be involved, and it couldn't just be members of the Pine Grove Mills Small Area Plan Advisory Committee meeting with those folks. So that would also be a time commitment for staff then to have to do that. So maybe it is just that list for this year.
That's what I'm wondering. So
Yeah.
did we just add the list in for 2024 and then?
I believe the list has already been completed.
Oh.
That's why we removed it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do we want the study to remain in there?
And I
Or-
will say that the study, so the verbiage in this work plan is directly from the small area plan. Staff has not taken it further into consideration. Do I think a professional study by a consultant is necessary to identify tax incentives? No, absolutely not. I think it's a conversation with the finance director and staff on that level, just to identify if there is anything that we could be doing to promote the local businesses to move to Pine Grove Mills.
Yeah, I think that's, okay. So do you just want to look at the verbiage in that one maybe and just add a little bit more nuance to that? Okay. And then the only other one, so for item number 10, it had said, create an electronic inventory of currently designated historic buildings. Let's see. But this number 10 that I'm looking at in here has amend the zoning ordinance to allow compatible uses and then partner with consultant. So
one thing was I thought that list of historic buildings was really good, and talking about, strategies for preservation. And so I think that's an important one to add back in, and that's kind of why I was looking at maybe lowering item, I have it as number 1, but I think it's actually number 2, the zoning. Item number 4. Zoning saldo, moving that from a high to a medium and doing that historic building list and strategies for preservation at high. Moving that one back up. Because then you're in a space to look at that number 4, the zoning and saldo. Okay, so that was my whole list. So other comments on Pine Grove Mills or any of the other work plans?
If I may, again, with Pine Grove Mills here, I'm wondering kind of the point of procedure after this, knowing that the committee meets in January. Is this something where board members should attend, or that we can make it more official, the discussion between the supervisors? If, for example, I were to attend to convey some of this information, or how do we go about actually influencing and updating this? I guess this is my question with the committee collaboratively.
So,
I'll let you-
our past practices, and I think it may even be as part of like the procedures, board members attending any authorities, boards, or commission meetings will join and participate and make a point to say I'm speaking as a resident, but not as a board member, because in order to speak on behalf of the board, you would need the board present. We would advertise for that. So there are ways that we've been able to do that in the past by having hybrid meetings, and we would just advertise accordingly. But board members are welcome to attend in their role of a resident for discussion. Otherwise, there would be, staff's role is to go in and facilitate the conversations as that staff liaison between the board and the ABC. So we could do a hybrid meeting if that is something of interest to the board for this discussion, or staff can kind of continue making the amendments and then facilitate the conversation on behalf of the board at the ABC meeting.
Right, so what I was foreseeing was this comes back to us maybe that first meeting in January, and we look at that and then hand it off to them. What would be nice is to have updates from maybe the chair, and that could be for the park committee and tree committee also, because we had talked about that in the past, and just there's always a lot going on, so we just kind of hadn't done that yet. But getting some, even twice a year reports, just some update, maybe mid-year report from them, to engage them with the board, their chair, whoever they appoint to come and connect with us, and maybe having that person from this committee, knowing their work plan is changing a little bit, come and report at one of those early meetings next year. Could be helpful, make sure that we're all on the same page.
Absolutely.
Okay. I like that, that's good, okay. Because it is difficult, it'd be nice to have more FaceTime and, hear from the members and, yeah, okay.
We can include that in the work plan as kind of an item of interest by the board, is to have, whether it be quarterly or mid-year, presentation updates on activity completed. Or
Right,
goals
yeah.
achieved.
We could divvy it up between, parks and tree, just however it is easily accommodated by staff or, tree committee and parks committee, but I think the board would get a lot out of that, so, okay, great. All right, so do we want to approve the Parks, Tree Commission, and Planning Commission work plans, and then we'll see Pine Grove Mills again later? Okay, so if someone wants to make a motion to approve those 3.
Oh, this is Patty, so moved to approve the Parks, Tree, and Planning Commission work plans for 2024.
And this is Matt, I'll second.
Okay, any other discussion?
Can I
Yes.
just check in on the ag security area? I'm looking at the updates because I wasn't at the last meeting and it was deferred to 2025. I believe we're required to review this every 7 years. I need to confirm with Christina that it's 2024 when we need to do this.
It's
Gotcha,
actually
okay.
been expired for 3 years because
Okay.
this was an issue that was on for the board may recall at the beginning of 2022, there had been a ag preservation, a farm that was going through the process of ag preservation, but the county had to delay its approval due to the fact that it hadn't gone through the ASA process. And when I was reviewing that process, while the township did have a process that it had been following, it was outdated and the update had been expired. However, had been expired for I want to say at least over, I think the last time it had been done was like 2010, maybe 2011. However, every time, just like, and I believe it was the Burkett farm, every time a farm does get voted to be preserved through the ag preservation program, if it needs to go through the ASA program, the township does push it through and it goes through the proper process and procedure. So while we should do a formal update, I just want to make sure that the board knows that there hasn't been a farm that hasn't been properly added to the township's ASA program.
Okay.
And we can, so that is something that the board can do. I will also acknowledge that it's one of those items where, given that there's transition and staffing, we have to pick and choose what we can do. And so we can throw it on as a goal, understanding that when it comes down to priorities, it may be one of those items that the planning commission will find that they need to do the land development plans as opposed to reviewing this for an update, so.
Okay, so you don't think?
You can add it back, and staff and the planning commission certainly can try to tackle that if time permits.
So if we add, since we know that it's out of date, if we add it back in as a low priority,
That would make sense.
okay. And then it at least is on the table before, okay, yeah, that makes sense. So that would be an amendment to the motion. There'd be one amendment to the planning commission. And again, it's as, time is permitted, so, okay. Okay, so would someone care to make the amendment to the motion?
I move that we amend the planning commission's work program to include item number 19, agricultural security area 7-year review for this year.
I, Mr. Thompson, second the amended motion.
Okay, all those in favor of the, well, we're amending her motion, so we're doing an amendment to the motion. Yes, okay.
Right.
All in favor of the amendment to the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay. Any other discussion on the original motion with amendment? Seeing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. All right, thank you. Okay, well, I think that all makes sense. So thanks very much for continuing to work on that. We want our ABCs to be productive and give them all the information they need to do that. So, all right, and we will go to communications to the board. If anybody had.
So I had a communication about attending meetings as well as a communication about workforce housing. And then also I just want to give a shout out based on some positive feedbacks that I've heard from many residents lately. I want to just give a shout out to Jim, the postal carrier that goes through my ward and probably parts of Patty's ward and other places, but he'll be retiring at the end of the month from the postal service. So I want to just congratulate him and thank him for his service, and just share that our residents have had a lot of good feedback about him.
Thank you. Any other communications? Go ahead.
I did have a resident in Pine Grove Mills let me know of some speeding concerns that they had. This is just a conversation on the sidewalk. So,
Thank you. And I had one on the affordable housing or workforce housing ordinance. Okay, if there's no other communications, we do want to acknowledge a couple of people around the table who are attending their final meeting with us today. Jenna Wargo is moving on from being our planning
I'll
director.
be in one more.
One more.
Via Zoom.
Okay, via Zoom, yeah, so last in person.
I'll be in Pittsburgh, but I will be there.
That's great. Well, thank you for doing that too, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Anything you want to say?
You all know me well enough. I'm very short with my comments. I am very grateful for the opportunity to serve this township. I mean that wholeheartedly. I've learned a lot in the last 4 years being here, and I am very excited for my new adventure.
Yay. And congratulations. We got to work together in the planning commission too, and it's a really exciting opportunity, but you're going to be very missed, and you've been such a great, positive part of the township here, so thank you for all you've done. And Corey Gracie Griffin is here at his last Board of Supervisors meeting as a member of the board. Thank you so much for stepping in when you did and agreeing to serve as a supervisor, and for everything you've done on various committees with all of the plans and studies and projects that we've moved forward. We hope you continue engaging here at the township. And anything you'd like to share?
I'll be brief myself. It's been a pleasure and an honor to serve our township over the last year and some months. I have learned a lot about local government and the peculiar form of it we have in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and I think that hopefully that I'll take that knowledge with me, and it will both make me a better citizen, as well as hopefully my neighbors and friends who now I can answer their questions. Even when I'm not a supervisor, I can hopefully at least direct them to the right person if I can't answer it. And so I look forward to continue serving the township as our representative to the Center Parks Region Authority, and I will. It's not so much goodbye, but it's see you less frequently.
Thank you both so much. Very much appreciated. All right, we have a number of calendar items on the agenda, and if there is nothing else, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And I'll second, and we are adjourned.
Yay.